All right, well, welcome. Thank you for coming to our workshop today. My name is Dr. Yvonne Murray Larrier, and we are presenting today on the Cultivating SEEDS System, a new framework to close the global mental health resources gap. I am the founding president of GC Scored, an associate professor and department chair of the Counseling and Human Services Department at Indiana University, South Bend.
And hello all, I am Dr. Geneva Fleming, and I'm joining Dr. Larrier and other today in this presentation. I am a higher education professional in the area of social work, currently serving at Limestone University. Also serve the priority in my life is serving as the vice president and associate director of GC Scored Incorporated.
I'm Felicia Hyacinth Purcell-Charles. I'm a licensed social worker from the state of New York, an addiction professional in the state of Florida. I have 18 years experience in mental health. I specialize in substance abuse disorders. I currently have an outpatient program called HOPE, helping our people exhale from their struggle with addiction in Grenada. I am the vice president for GC Scored for Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique. And I am proud to be an alumni of Stony Brook and Columbia University, New York. So today we're looking at the Cultivating SEEDS System framework. And we're hoping by the end of this presentation, you will know more about GC Scored. You will have an understanding of the framework and the birth story of the Cultivating SEEDS System. We would look at the tenets and the beliefs of the Cultivating SEEDS framework, the components and the efficiency and relevance of the CSS framework today.
So who is GC Scored? I'm going to give you a little bit of information about GC Scored to get us started. So GC Scored is, well, first of all, it stands for the Global Center for Systemic Change, Outcomes Research, Evaluation, and Development. We were incorporated, however, in 2013 as the Global Center for School Counseling, Outcomes Research, Evaluation, and Development. And we renamed ourselves in 2021 to the Global Center for Systemic Change, Outcomes Research, Evaluation, and Development. So that's just a little background on who GC Scored is.
So the purpose and mission of GC Scored. You will see here on our slide that our primary purpose is building relational capacity. And we do that both with individuals, families, organizations, and communities. Our mission is to renew minds, transform lives, and ultimately create safer communities. Okay, why GC Scored and our vision? So let me just share first, GC Scored, the vision of GC Scored is that we envision individuals of all ages across the globe living their best lives in resilient settings and societies where all individuals, all institutions, all communities are fully engaged and where every piece matters. So why GC Scored? Why should individuals want to partner with, be involved with, learn from GC Scored? Is because what we do is that we help people, we help you become conscious problem solvers and an empowered life coach. That is our why statement. So what does GC Scored do? All right. Basically, in a nutshell, we engage, educate, equip, and empower, right? So how do we do that? We have 4 divisions within the organization of GC Scored. We have the Institute for Social Emotional Education, where individuals, institutions, communities can become educated on the CSS framework and the RUMERTIME process. We also have a telehealth line known as the Listening Oasis Wellness Space, where individuals across the globe can call in or text in. We have several different mediums by which individuals can connect with a wellness champion, a trained wellness champion, to assist them with their social emotional wellness. And then we have a journal. It's an international journal, the Journal of Global Engagement and Transformation, where we welcome manuscripts and writings from practitioners and professionals and individuals who have a story to share about how the CSS framework and the RUMERTIME process is impacting them in their local setting and their communities. So therefore, GC Scored, as I mentioned earlier, engages, educates, equips, and empowers individuals of all races, all ages, beliefs, locations, and other socio-demographic factors across the globe about the Cultivating SEEDS System framework. So we engage, educate, equip, and empower all individuals, but especially those of the BIPOC community, those Black, Indigenous, people of color, and other populations that are considered invisible, marginalized, voiceless, and vulnerable communities across the globe with the RUMERTIME process. We do that with all individuals to help them effectively utilize what we refer to as SEFA. And SEFA is the social emotional first aid as a social emotional wellness support and resource. We also engage, educate, equip, and empower laypersons and others to effectively utilize the Cultivating SEEDS framework as a reconceptualized, de-stigmatized, and demystified, culturally responsive, task-sharing, shifting framework.
So as everything that is organic and everything that is an organism, CSS framework, the Cultivating SEEDS System framework, has a birth story. And I'm about to tell you some more about the birth story. Many seeds, many seeds were sown in diverse places and spaces. And so some of those places and spaces were, you will find out shortly. But CSS, as we know, as we've been talking, I think you've heard now what CSS stands for. CSS means Cultivating SEEDS System. SEEDS means or stands for Social Emotional Education in Diverse Settings. Okay, so CSS means Cultivating SEEDS System. SEEDS means Social Emotional Education in Diverse Settings. So they're shared stories, part of the birth story, the beginnings, the germination, the planting of the seeds. And these started years ago, long ago, before the world was. No, so these started in multiple places. Caribbean seeds, because I consider myself to be a citizen of the Caribbean. And my growing up years, until the age of about 18, I lived in the Caribbean in multiple islands. And it was in those formative years, I would say, that my parents' influence of reaching out, supporting others, trying to help individuals be their best selves, helping individuals to renew their mind, transform their lives, and create safer communities. Those seeds were planted in me at that time. And they germinated when I migrated. I migrated to the US. and I migrated to the Midwest region, where I did my undergrad and graduate degrees. The life experiences that I gathered and gained during internships as a social worker student and a social work intern. Then I did my clinical mental health educational experiences in different settings, in diverse settings, seeing, again, humanity, seeing opportunities to help renew minds, to help transform lives, to help create safer communities occurred in the Midwest. Then I moved to the East Coast, same experiences, gained experiences in internships and in jobs. Went to the West Coast, where I met Geneva. We planted seeds there again. We did a lot of seed planting in the southern areas of the US, southern region of the US, planted seeds and saw how environmental factors, essential growth elements, were either in scarce amounts, or in abundance for other populations, but those who were from the BIPOC community or marginalized or underserved or vulnerable, those seeds were not available. Those planting experiences did not occur for those people. And so those are the similar stories that ran through it. I have to say, I also met Kalisha as part of my Midwest experience when I lived here, and we had GC Scored had its international conference in Trinidad and Tobago in 2015. I met her in the Caribbean. All of these seed planting experiences came together to create the Cultivating SEEDS System. So some of the revolving themes that occurred during the planting period, where the seeds were being planted and nurtured, some of the themes that were revolving were lack of willingness on the establishment to make room for culturally diverse groups. So these are the things that were going on in my mind that were feeding me, nurturing me, giving me nutrients to help me develop, create the Cultivating SEEDS System framework. The need to maintain and protect the status quo. Those were some themes that were revolving in every region, every setting that I was involved in and I was engaged in. Then the lack of culturally responsive intervention strategies. Another theme that was running through all of these stories and experiences. Then lack of culturally diverse practitioners and helpers. Another theme that ran through all these different places, the Caribbean, the Midwest, the East Coast, the West Coast, the Southern areas. Lack of access to culturally responsive prevention intervention strategies and unequal distribution of resources. All of these themes came together to create what we now have. GC Scored has developed and created, we will talk more about it, the CSS framework, the Cultivating SEEDS System framework. And this is the result of all the seed planting experiences, all the environmental factors that went into nurturing those seeds and creating fruits and the tree trunk and the roots, etc. This is the birth story of the CSS, the Cultivating SEEDS System framework.
Okay, so looking at the basic tenets in terms of the CSS framework, it is really looking at the lens through which we view, understand, and relate with mental health. When we look through the lens, we must pay attention to cultural competence and cultural responsiveness. So right now, let's take a look at cultural competence. And in order for us to recognize and understand relationships and interact with other people, it's important that we first are able to recognize each other's culture, right? And the components of everybody's culture. So cultural competence is the awareness, knowledge, and skills needed to function effectively for culturally diverse populations. That's how Sue and Sue defined it, and that's how we're going to stick with it, right? But when we go back to that agricultural metaphor, the cultivating seed system, as we look at ourselves as a tree, right? When you look at a tree, there's the top portion of that tree that we see, that we can observe. You know, we look at the leaves, the fruits, the trunk. That's that 10% that we can observe. For instance, we look at the games we play, the food people eat, the performing arts, language, clothes, holidays, rituals, traditions. That's what we see. But then the point that we really have to understand and pay attention to is what's under the roots, that 90% that we cannot see, right? That 90% that we cannot see is what we need to pay attention to. So we know that there is the seen and unseen part of the culture. And we know that there's a 10% that we can see. But in order for us to navigate and be able to recognize and understand relationships, we have to zoom in on the roots. We have to look at the 90% that we cannot see. For instance, the values, body language, the way we approach problems, right? Religion, all of that have to be taken into consideration, because that is what is the root of really who we are. So that is part of that cultural competence, but we also have to learn to be culturally responsive, right? Because that is how we interact and we manage our life skills with other people, right? So we have cultural responsiveness, and we define that by saying it is the person's ability to first and foremost be aware of and understand what it means to be responsive, and to follow that awareness up to the action that leads them to respond empathetically, compassionately, justly, sensitively, kind-heartedly, with goodwill towards individuals who are culturally diverse of the space and place, right?
So what is wellness, or what is health, right? And GC Scored has chosen to use this definition. As you are well aware, there are hundreds of definitions out there. This is the one that we have chosen to use because it fits with our framework and the way we see the world, the way we see relationships, the way we see individuals' mental health. Okay, and so that definition that we've chosen is that it is a choice. Wellness is a choice of lifestyle marked by a balance of body, mind, and spirit. Again, wellness is a choice of lifestyle marked by a balance of body, mind, and spirit. And so what is social emotional health or wellness? What is this? And again, how we have defined it, it is a person's ability to recognize, understand, manage, express, and reflect on their thoughts, interactions, mindsets, and emotions as it relates to self, others, and situations. As you effectively utilize these competencies, they help you become educated, equipped, and empowered. And this happens for individuals of all ages, stages, and locations, so that they can successfully navigate their daily activities, such as loving, learning, earning, relationship building, problem solving, and adapting to the demands of growth and development. So this is the definition we use for health. And this is the definition we use for social emotional health or wellness. Relationship capacity cultivation. What is it? It is the process of developing and strengthening the markers, and we will talk about that in the next slide. Strengthening, developing the markers that individuals in homes, schools, workplaces, communities, organizations, and institutions need to be able to survive, thrive, adapt, and grow in a fast-changing world. The picture here is, and I don't know if Kalisha knows what it is or Geneva knows what picture this is of the fruit on the tree.
I do.
You do?
Yes, I do.
I believe Kalisha had some for breakfast this morning.
Oh, she
Nope.
did?
Nope.
No, I didn't.
Okay, because
but-
I thought it was guava. I'm sorry.
No,
That's
no.
okay. Good try, good
It's-
try.
I just know that it's very spicy.
Oh,
Yeah, so what is it? Tell the world.
It is the nutmeg.
This is the nutmeg tree.
Yes.
And the nutmeg fruit is what you're seeing there. Yes. So relationship capacity cultivating is the process of developing and strengthening the markers. And so we're going to talk now about what those markers are. The M in markers stands for mindsets. A stands for activities or ambitions, one's dreams. What do you want to become? R stands for relationships, helping individuals to develop healthy relationships, knowledge, gaining knowledge so that you could be able to drive your dreams on your activities or help you make decisions about good relationships or not. Then E stands for emotional literacy skills, giving individuals the language, the emotion language, so that they can describe and express themselves in appropriate ways that could further their ability to manage their relationships, further their ability to get their needs met. So that's the E. And R, resources. We help with the CSS framework, helps individuals determine where they can get resources from. What type of innate abilities do they have that could serve as helpful resources for them to manage relationships? And then the S is strategies. What strategies can they learn? Will they learn from these markers, from the CSS framework, to help them again show up as effective, empowered problem solvers and conscious life coaches for themselves?
so social emotional wellness impacts us all. And I really love this, this quote that's coined by our very own Dr. Yvonne Murray Larrier. As air is to life, so are social emotional competencies to relationships. They are like the air we breathe. And we know if we don't have air, we can't breathe. And if we don't breathe, we don't have life. So that's the value and the significance of social emotional competencies. And indeed, they impact us all. So the World Health Organization has coined this definition of mental health. And it states, mental health is defined as a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or her own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, and can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to contribute to his or her own community. So I've stated that social emotional wellness impacts us all. So does mental health impact us all. And you've heard the definition coined by the World Health Organization. So mental health does impact us all. And the promotion of emotional well-being, it really should be a universal public health concern. And another quote that I really like, because it speaks to who we are and what we're all about, why we do what we do, is this quote by Dr. Lynn Friedley that says, everyone has mental health needs, whether or not they have a mental illness, just as everyone has physical health needs, whether or not they are sick. So mental health impacts us all, and there is no health without mental health. And I thank the World Health Organization for coining that statement. There is no health without mental health.
So GC Scored and the Cultivating SEEDS System framework, we approach mental health from a social emotional wellness perspective. Those are the lens, we talked about the lens earlier, those are the lens through which we see mental health for multiple reasons. One is to decrease or eliminate the stigma associated with mental health language, as well as the mental health conditions, the stigma surrounding, the mystery surrounding it, the shame surrounding it. So we approach mental health from a social emotional wellness perspective. And we believe that in order to achieve that triadic balance we talked about earlier in terms of how we defined health and wellness, body, soul, body, mind, and spirit, that's the triadic balance. And so we believe that in order to achieve triadic balance, we must, absolutely must, intentionally and consciously focus on the roots. And some of those roots that we in the Cultivating SEEDS System framework are referring to are things such as relational capacity building skills and the conditions or the resources at one's home or school, work, and community where growth and development takes place. And we also, in our mental health manifesto, in our mental health reboot, we interpret many symptoms. We didn't say all, we said many symptoms, behaviors, feelings, labels, and diagnoses as fruits or outgrowths and manifestations of the activities happening at and around the root level. Okay, so this is our mental health manifesto. Basically, this is our definition of mental health. We use a social emotional wellness perspective. Next, if you're going to create a definition, we have to create the glossary. And so this is what this is, right? Mental health in the regular world is, our definition of that, or our meaning for that, is social emotional wellness. So when we talk about social emotional wellness, again, because we believe words matter, and there's stigma associated with the language of mental health. When you hear us talk about social emotional wellness, we are in essence talking about mental health. Then triadic balance, again, is the inter and intrapersonal balance of body, mind, and spirit. Then we talk about roots. Those are the causes or the etiologies, where something started, the beginnings of it, the birth of it, right? Then we talk about soil. For us, that is mindsets. Those are one's mindsets and beliefs, viewpoints, the environment, right, in which one is experiencing life. Seeds are the social, emotional skills, relational capacity building skills. Those are those 5 core social, emotional skills that I'll share with you shortly. Then we have the essential growth elements. Those are the conditions necessary for growth, development, change to take place at home, school, work, and in one's community. And then fruits, those are the outgrowths, the results, the consequences, right? And we look at those as symptoms, behaviors, feelings, labels, and diagnoses. So when we talk about fruits, we're talking about symptoms, behaviors, feelings, labels, and diagnoses. And so here we have, going along with our agricultural metaphor, we have roots and fruits of social emotional wellness. This is just a visual depiction of what I just shared with you. And at the root level, we have the 5 social emotional competencies, and these are self-awareness skills, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship management skills. And we, all of us, have different measures of this. We have different levels of these 5 core skills. And we are also able to acquire these in different settings. So children, tweens, youth, adults, in their home, school, community, or work, come into these places, show up in life, show up in our daily activities with some measure of these 5 social emotional competencies: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, responsible decision-making, and relationship management skills. So these are the fruits, these are the environmental factors, the social determinants, social emotional determinants of life, and the fruits. Here are some of the potential possible fruits as a result of what is happening at the root level. You can experience possible academic growth, spiritual growth, professional, personal, relational, psychological, physical, cognitive growth. Those are the fruits of what is happening at the root level and the environment. So that is some more information on how social emotional wellness shows up in our daily lives.
Okay, so we're gonna go right into the features of the CSS framework. And some of the main features that we live by, we operate by, we instruct by, is that the CSS framework, one, is research-based, it's innovative, it's relatable. Who can't relate to agriculture, right? Where in the world we cannot relate to agriculture? Easy to teach, easy to learn, it's adaptable, scalable, as I said before, culturally responsive, engaging and active. We come with lots of games and activities to really dive into our social emotional competencies, comprehensive, it's integrated. And again, most of all, it's community-based, task sharing, shifting. So that, in a nutshell, is the feature of our framework. Now, the CSS framework has components. And as I believe that I've mentioned before, and my other colleagues have, we utilize the agricultural metaphor to illustrate human growth, development, and relationship. Agriculture is universal, right? You all have been hearing a lot about the CSS framework, the birth of the CSS framework, the birth of GC School. But I want to elaborate or really zoom in on the definition of the CSS framework. And as we have it here, the CSS framework, the CSS Cultivating SEEDS System, is an organizing framework that gives context, order, and meaning to information obtained by a client's background. It is a multi-theoretical framework that uses social, emotional competencies and social determinants of a person's life's course to explain human behavior. It also identifies the culturally responsive approach to the RUMERTIME process, which is to educate, equip, and empower individuals as they renew their minds, transform lives, and create safer communities. CSS stands for the Cultivating SEEDS System. In turn, which Dr. Larrier had mentioned before, SEEDS is an acronym that stands for Social Emotional Education in Diverse Settings. So as we taper down from the definition, we look at what are the 2 main goals that we focus on. So the CSS framework goals: goal 1, to increase access to destigmatize and demystify problem-solving strategy using the RUMERTIME process, so that individuals in diverse settings, locally, globally, can become conscious problem solvers, empowered life coaches as they acquire healthy social emotional markers. Goal 2, again, to educate, equip, and empower individuals to effectively utilize their social emotional skills as they renew their minds, transform their lives, and create safer communities for their friends, family, and others.
So thank you, Kalisha, for sharing some about agriculture metaphors. So that's one of the primary ways that the GC Scored uses to describe human behavior. And so in this slide, you see our definition. In fact, Dr. Larrier shared some of that already. But when you hear us speak of soil, we're talking about the environment in which an individual is born, where that individual grow and live and learn and work and play. So they are made up of influences on every aspect of a person's life. That's the soil. And then, in all of these, just think about plant life, right? So, and I like the fact that Kalisha shared earlier about the relatability of agriculture. It's something all of us can relate to across the globe. So think plant life. So the other is seeds. Seeds, these are those 5 social emotional competencies that you've been hearing us talk about. And they are the foundation for healthy growth and development. Seedlings, what's a seedling? Seedlings are individuals we describe as individuals between birth to 18 years of age. They're considered seedlings. And then we have saplings. Again, think plant life, and then relate to human life and human development. So when we speak of a sapling, we're speaking of individuals between the ages of 19 and 24. So then we have sowers. So sowers are individual who influences and inspires seedlings and saplings who implant the social emotional competencies. So sowers might be parents or teachers, other individuals of influence, leaders in the community, churches. So sowers have the capability to change their environments and those in the seedlings and the saplings, because they are imparting information, education, and helping to equip those in the younger categories. And then we have pollen. What is pollen? Pollen are words that are added to an individual's vocabulary to promote healthy social emotional growth and development. So these essential growth elements, right? You think about plant life, in order to get that plant to thrive, to produce fruit, there are some essential things that we have to offer to that plant life. Same applies to human development. So when we talk about essential growth elements, we're talking about those positive influences, such as self, peers, government, home, school, work, community, media, and culture. All are needed to foster and promote healthy growth. So optimal balance of all these positive influences, or elements, they result in healthy growth and development of the human life. Now, unfavorable balance of these elements can lead to inadequate growth and inadequate production. So that's a description of what we mean by agriculture, utilizing an agriculture metaphor in discussing human development.
The CSS framework, the Cultivating SEEDS System framework, uses multiple theoretical influences. We have, where you see CR, that means culturally responsive. So we use psychosocial development, culturally responsive. We use CBT, cognitive behavior therapy. We use principles from all of these theoretical frameworks. And they have been, again, just like how you have when you're planting and you have fertilizer. In that fertilizer, there are all different types of nutrients. These theories are considered fertilizers for the CSS framework. We have problem-solving theory, narrative, we have strengths-based, we also have the triadic body, soul, and spirit, ecological systems theory. All of these, strengths-based, social justice, all of these are like fertilizers, right, that help to to really ground and nourish the CSS framework so that it could be comprehensive, relatable, scalable, and research-based. Moving on to our next slide, we have, so out of that, the RUMERTIME process, again, these are all components, right? We're talking about the components of the CSS framework. And we have now the RUMERTIME process, which is the intervention prevention strategy. And we have here, we use again agricultural metaphors. We talk about plots and talk about rows. So the plots are recognize, and that is aligned with self-awareness skills. We have understand as plot number 2, which is self-awareness skills. Then we have plot number 3, which is manage, and that includes self-management and relationship management skills. Then we have express, which is plot number 4, social awareness skills, and plot number 5, reflect, which is aligned with healthy decision-making skills. And so these are some of the components of the Cultivating SEEDS System framework.
So we've mentioned social determinants quite often as we've been speaking, but let's just look at the social determinants of social emotional wellness. Okay, so we look at the environment and the influence, the development and the growth of the healthy markers that we spoke about earlier. We have to look at the home, the school, community, national society, global society. We have to look at the whole picture when we're looking at those social determinants, right? That's when we look at the risk factors, the protective factors, all of that, okay? But now with our approach, Dr. Larrier came up with quite a number of games. And one of the games that we often focus on or we often play is one that's called the Eco Dice game. So this is exactly how it looks. And we have a dice and we roll, and based on what, if you get 2 or 3, we stop and we discuss those factors or those social determinants of that social emotional wellness. That's what we do. And that kind of helps bring out probably some of the things that the individual wasn't able to recognize before, right? So this is definitely one of the games that we use in terms of getting one to be able to be aware.
Mm-hmm.
So here at GC Scored, we have several levels of engagement, strategies and mediums and activities by which we educate and equip and help to empower individuals across the globe. And some of those include, you see them here, we have the CSS guidebook, and we have the CSS Facilitators Guide and Students Workbooks. And we have multiple, this is 25 plus, we have a multiplicity of what we refer to as mulching activities, games and puzzles. Kalisha just shared about our multimodal Eco Dice game. Then we have the RPIC manual and workbook, and that's the RUMERTIME Prevention and Intervention Coach manual and workbook. The CFA manual and workbook is a workbook used for our social emotional first aid. And then we also have Digging Deeper into DEI, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have the RUMERTIME emometer or emometer, depending on where you are in the globe and how you might pronounce that. And one that is always welcome whenever we are having some educational experiences is the tree activity. If you were a tree, what type of tree would you be? So think about that. That's a very highly utilized activity that we have incorporated in our program. And then we have Sowing Seeds with the My Time video series. This is something that we initiated this year in one of the middle schools here in the US, and it was very well received. So those are just some of the ways that we engage with you all. Now, the RUMERTIME, what is the acronym for RUMERTIME? Some people get it all mixed up, but let me just educate and explain. So RUMERTIME is an acronym that stands for, you can see in the slide here, the letters that are highlighted in red spells RUMERTIME. The R is for recognize, U, understand, M is to manage, E, express, and R is reflect on one's T, thoughts, I, interaction, M, mindsets, E, emotions. So we want to rumor our time, right? And when we talk about time, we're not talking about a watch or a timepiece, but our thoughts, our interactions, our mindsets, and our emotions. So there are 5 steps in the RUMERTIME process.
Dr. G explained that beautifully, the engagements, the level of engagements, and what the RUMERTIME is an acronym and what it stands for. And so that's why you're going to see it, always see it in all uppercase letters, because it is an acronym. And so what is the RUMERTIME process? It is a 5-step, culturally responsive, social emotional problem-solving strategy that helps individuals move from a position of intra and interpersonal imbalance to intra and interpersonal balance, and from unconscious living to conscious living. So that is the RUMERTIME process.
Thank you, Dr. Larrier. So more about the RUMERTIME process. So we described RUMERTIME in terms of plots and rows. And as you see on this slide, to your left, well, it's to my left, it might be to your right, but the plots are those 5 steps that Dr. Larrier just mentioned. They are the social emotional competencies. And then time, really those thoughts, interaction, mindsets, and emotions, we refer to them as rows. Again, sticking with the agricultural metaphor and the plant life and the plant world. If you can imagine having a garden or even a field, you will likely have plots and rows. So for every plot, you're going to have rows, right? So for recognize, when we talk about recognize, we're talking about how do you recognize? What does it mean? It requires us to recognize our thoughts, our interactions, our mindsets, and our emotions. That's just one plot. And then we go deeper to the other self-awareness skill of understand. So when we're talking about understanding, we have to ask questions regarding the same questions, the same pieces in the row, right? The time. So we have to understand our thoughts, our interactions, our mindsets, and our emotions. And we go through the stages or those steps through all of the plots: manage, express, and reflect. So for each plot, we have to consider thoughts, interactions, our mindsets, and our emotions. And we've mentioned it as a strategy, and it is indeed a strategy. And you don't have to come up with the questions. We have guiding questions to assist one in recognizing their thoughts, understanding their thoughts and interactions, managing those thoughts and interactions, mindsets, and expressing and even reflecting on thoughts, your interactions with others, even interactions with yourself, your mindsets, and your emotion. So that describes the strategies of the RUMERTIME process in terms of plots and rows.
Thank you, Geneva, for explaining the plots and the rows and the plots. And I want to just have everybody be reminded that when we look at the RUMERTIME, I've had clients in the past ask me, can I just skip to manage, right? And I always say, well, we want to skip to manage because we want to problem solve, but you have to go through the rumor, because you have to be able to recognize your situation or someone else's situation or someone else's thoughts or mindset or yours. You have to be able to understand it. And then that would equip you with the skills that you need to help you to manage. So that's the beauty of the rumor, right? So I just want to add to that, but I'm going to move on to the CFA, which is looking at the social emotional first aid. Genius, Dr. Larrier, genius. So the social emotional skills in your daily life, right? We have to go back to those 5 components: self-awareness, responsible decision-making, social awareness, relationship management, self-management. Now, when we look at self-awareness, right? We can't move to making decisions if we're also not aware of ourselves or aware of other things and our environment and what's around us. So you ask yourself, who am I? Why am I here? What do I believe? What do I want? Right? Those are some of the questions that you want to ask yourself. Then we move to responsible decision making. What are some of the questions that we ask ourselves as we build that skills? How can I make better choices? How do I always end up in these situations or in these relationships or in this sort of interactions, right? What's going on here? Then we look at social awareness. Like, how can I show kindness? How can I be thoughtful? How can I help others? How can I help myself, right? Those are some of that social awareness that we have to be aware of, because again, in social work, we know there is person in the environment, right? We always have to keep that in mind. We look at relationship management. What do I need to do? How does what I do affect someone else? How can I manage this relationship, right? So that it could be a more effective, productive sort of interaction. And the last one is self-management, right? How can I control my thinking, my feeling? How do I manage it? What can I do or not do? How do I stay mentally healthy in my interactions and my relationship with others is a way of managing self. So that is that first aid. I would say it's like a first aid kit to kind of help us interact better with the rest of our environment.
So I know many people love to find out about the efficacy of the studies of this CSS framework. Is it research-based? Are there any type of practitioner outcomes? Well, yes, we have some research to support the efficacy of this framework and how it has helped. And you can always go to our websites and see the various testimonials, as well as the way that we do the RUMERTIME in real time and hear people's stories about the efficacy of this program. So let's start with this first one, the CSS framework. We conducted an exploratory study with 29 mental health clinicians. And what we did, we were exploring the CSS framework as a delivery system to help us increase access to the global mental health resources. And so we'll talk a little bit about accessibility, cultural relevance, and scalability in this study. So what we found, that we had we had 3 major findings in this study. Area 1, the question was, how can we show the importance of specific characteristics for intervention strategies, and how does the CSS framework measure up? How does it stack up against specific intervention strategies and their characteristics? So what we found in our study was that the cultural responsiveness feature, I remember Kalisha talked earlier about the 13 features of the CSS framework, but the culturally responsiveness feature of the CSS framework was seen as the most important feature of an intervention. And we used Wien's strategy, his intervention model that he uses mainly with refugee individuals, people in refugee camps. He has 8 of them. And you can go to one of our published papers is the exploratory study of the CSS framework and get more details. But there are 8 features measured. And our study participants rated the cultural responsiveness feature of the CSS framework as very effective and extremely effective. And out of five Likert scale readings, the result was an average of 4.81 out of 5, which is very high, very high. So on the cultural responsiveness scale, the CSS framework was rated very effective and extremely effective. Then area 2, the effectiveness of their current interventions and the CSS framework, again, a RUMERTIME process. How did the CSS framework match up to these 29 mental health clinicians, the interventions that they were currently using? How did the CSS framework match up to it? Again, the CSS framework received a much higher average rating, 4.38, again on a 5-point scale rating than the current interventions that these clinicians were using. They rated their interventions at 3.55 average and rated the CSS framework 4.38. Again, showing the efficacy and showing that the CSS framework is comparable to other interventions. Area 3, the confidence and perceptions of their skills. How did they feel when they used this? How did they feel? How did their confidence grow or not? And how did they believe? What did they believe about their skills after going through the training? After the CCCS training, the participants felt most confident in their ability to provide clients with effective support strategies. Again, having access to the units of activity, as we talked about the units of activity in the CSS framework, they felt their confidence level increased. Their confidence level increased because they found that the activities that the CSS framework has gave them the support and the confidence to use these as intervention strategies. So I think the CSS framework is very effective in this manner. Then this was the CSS framework, and part of the CSS framework is the RUMERTIME intervention, the RUMERTIME process. And we did an intervention with high poverty, high needs, urban school district system, K-12 in Midwestern region of the US. We had 8 RUMERTIME prevention intervention coaches or specialists. And out of those 8 individuals worked with 1,174 students and their interacted with students at that level. And so here is one of the findings. The main finding is the area that we looked at was the emotional state upon entering and leaving the daytime intervention room. And so this was a program where instead of suspending students or sending them to out of school suspension or in-school suspension, this school district developed what was called the daytime intervention rooms. And they had these rooms in every one of the schools in the school district. And in that daytime intervention room program, the only intervention that was used was the RUMERTIME process. And so they used multiple of our strategies. And one of the strategies was the RUMERTIME emometer or the emometer. So when students came into the daytime intervention room, the RUMERTIME prevention intervention coaches or the RPICs would assess the students' emotional state when they came in and when they left. And this is the finding. RUMERTIME process strategies were implemented during the students' time with the RPIC. And when the students came into the room, the DIR, when they left and when they came in. So when they came in, on a scale of 1 to 10, they were at 4.79. So their emotional intensity levels were high. when they left, after being rumerized, as we call it, after using the RPICs using the different RUMERTIME process strategies, the cultivating seeds strategies, once those strategies were applied or utilized, the emotional state of the student when leaving the DIR was significantly lower when the student left. So at that point, leaving, it was about 3.39 out of 10, whereas when they came in, it was a 4.79 out of 10. Here we see that the treatment or the intervention that happened, which was the RUMERTIME process that happened in the daytime intervention room, had a direct impact on how students were able to manage themselves emotionally. And we know that when students are able to manage their emotions, learning can take place, healthy relationships can be established or maintained, students feel better about coming to school, they feel better about themselves. And so this is one of the main reasons why this CSS framework and the RUMERTIME process is so critical to individuals at all different stages of life. But we see it here being implemented and the effectiveness of it with K to 12 students in the US. So one of the things we want to show is that the RUMERTIME process, the research and practice of it regarding is taking on a new light, is increasing attention. A lot of attention is being used to focus on social emotional learning in the US and across the world. But as we know, with many curriculum and programming best practices, communities of color, marginalized, invisible, voiceless, and under-resourced schools and communities are usually often excluded from the design, from the research design and the curriculum development and implementation. This CSS framework, as we stated earlier at the beginning, is for all, but there's a specific and intentional mindset that was involved in the development of the curriculum and the CSS framework, and very specific in terms of implementation with people of color across the globe, marginalized groups, invisible, voiceless, under-resourced. So therefore, these communities and the lived experiences of their students, educators, and families are usually excluded. So when you look at other interventions, when you look at other frameworks, they are not as intentionally planned or developed to include, again, communities of color, marginalized individuals, invisible and voiceless individuals and communities. So those are some of the gaps that the CSS framework and the RUMERTIME process fills across the globe. In conclusion, I just want to restate, the CSS framework is a culturally responsive, de-stigmatized, and demystified, reconceptualized approach that we can use, that we want to introduce to you, that can be used to increase global mental health resources and support. And we have some testimonials. Again, go to our website and you will see the information coming up. Some of the people, individuals who have used our program say that it has helped them to stop smoking. It has helped my daughter save my daughter from suicide. And others have said it's helped my children and I navigate the sudden death of my husband, their father. We want you to explore this. Those of you who are going to be watching this presentation, you will see our information here. Go to our website, get information on how you can find out more about the CSS framework and how you can possibly get us to work with you, partner with you and your organizations or your communities or your families. We are available. Here are the numbers and here are the email addresses and the website. So we want to thank you again. Again, I am Dr. Yvonne Murray Larrier, and the rest of the team will say goodbye.
So once again, I am Dr. Geneva Fleming. It's been a pleasure sharing with you in this presentation, and I look forward to engaging with you in the very near future.
All right, I am Kalisha Hyacinth Purcell-Charles. Thank you so much for having us. I am wishing all social workers, mental health professionals all over the world. I am Kalisha Hyacinth Purcell-Charles. I would like to thank everyone for tuning in and listening. I encourage everyone to contact us. Let's network. Our goal, again, is to transform lives and create safer places and communities. So I wish everyone well, social workers and all mental health professionals. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for spending time with us. Blessings.
Bye.